You're tuned in to The W with Walls and the Crew, where winning isn't everything. It's the only thing. On 101 FM and Facebook Live.
Back in on the W Show, 100.1 FM, Kansas City. We're here. It's still live inside of Tampa Bay Convention Center, where it's filling up a little bit. At least we think it is. You know, it's still kind of bleak, not rubbing shoulders like we were the past last year, especially in Miami. We're going to be joined in just a few minutes by John Pollard, who is going to talk to us about Zebra Technology, and he'll be joining us on the show here in just a couple of seconds. Q, we talked to Solomon Wilcox. What were your thoughts about just the cell repair and what he had to talk about?
I mean, it's a wonderful technology, man.
Mm-hmm.
You look at and it's great to be offered, on a lot of the insurance carriers too.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Black people are statistically treated unfairly, and especially in the medical field. And to be able to get something like this, which could be a common injury, like, Noel just talked about, him potentially having, that injury and needing that procedure done. And I think it's huge because it's just a step in the right direction, especially for people in need.
It is, yes, and for a doctor to be able to perform that type of that type of procedure too. For not only athletes but just regular folks.
Yeah, and to be able to get back on the field. He talked about that college player, getting back on the field and then also getting drafted and playing for a team. Because again, like we talked about, normally you look at knee injuries, ACL, MCL, sometimes meniscus. People really don't come back from those injuries. So to be able to come back from this, and especially something so common and painful, right. Just the way they described it. I've never had a knocking in my knee, so I couldn't even imagine.
It's not fun.
Yeah. It's not fun. Jazz, you said you had an issue.
Yeah. In 8th grade, I actually tore my MCL.
Okay.
And so in that case, they said that I was young enough to where I didn't need the surgery yet. They could just rehab it fully, which I made a full recovery, thank goodness. But I just like to see it because a lot of those injuries, I feel like usually you just have to rest it or you just have to, sit out. And that's one of the frustrating sides of being an athlete. Like, I don't want to just rest. Like, how do you just rest? And so I like to see that you can do things that can make it preventative to where in the future you don't have to deal with those things anymore.
It's amazing to me that a lot of people walk around with issues. I mean, Noel talked about it. He said that he's feeling that sensation now, and literally we all walk around with different types of ailments. Mm-hmm. And I know as men, right, Jazz, I'm sorry, but as men, we tend to be like, no, we don't need to go to the doctor and see anyone for anything. We can tough it out. We're just going to make it happen. Yeah. But it's good to see that they're actually, campaigning to make sure that you can get healthy.
No, definitely. And that's one thing that I touched on, just us being as Black people and being treated so unfairly in a lot of different fields, and healthcare being one of them, for now being able to afford it. You look at, like you said, people walk around with these ailments, and a lot of times it's because they feel like they can't afford it. And then it's not having the knowledge behind it, and then not having the finances. So yeah, it's definitely huge to be able to get to a point, where you have insurance and you are able to get these ailments fixed, corrected, whatever needs to be done for you to heal. So again, I think it's huge and I love it.
Okay, I want to bring in our guest. We have John Pollard joining us on the show. John is he's going to talk to us about, he's with Zebra Technologies. He's going to talk to us about the next gen stats in the NFL. John, how are you doing today? Thanks for doing this.
Hey, Steve, how are you guys doing? Glad to be on with you.
Pretty good. Talk about how these next gen stats will happen inside of this Super Bowl coming up on Sunday.
Yeah, sure. So Zebra Technologies is the official player tracking technology provider for the NFL, and the 2020 season was our 6th season of doing that, playing that capacity with the league. And what we do is we put a series of receiver boxes around the perimeter of every stadium in the NFL. those in the U.S. And also when we do play the international games, the stadiums in the U.K. and Mexico City as well. And on the field, all the players have 2 tags, RFID tags, about a nickel size diameter in each side of the shoulder pads. And those tags communicate with the receiver boxes, and it tells you who's on the field, where they are on the field, how fast they're moving, either for a single play or can take an aggregate average over the entire game. It also tracks distance traveled and proximity from each other. So, and we also have an RFID tag in the football as well. And, for us as fans, when we're watching broadcast, and we've seen it increase a lot in the last couple of years, how the broadcast partners have used Next Gen Stats to tell a more detailed story during the broadcast of the game. But the Next Gen Stats information is collected by Zebra Technologies in our services.
Wow. Talk about Next Gen Stats and Zebra Technology. That's some next level stuff. I mean, because before you weren't able to get all these different metrics, such as ball location and player speed and distance traveled. Talk about that. Just how in depth does this go?
Yeah, well, so the tags themselves on the players, in basic technical speak, it emits a signal 12 times a second. So we're collecting a lot of information for the players on the field. Yeah. The tag inside the football, which we worked with Wilson Sporting Goods of the NFL to come up with a tag that could be inserted during the ball's construction at Wilson Sporting Goods. And so every NFL football, as it's constructed, has our tag melded inside the rubber bladder of the football. And the tag is located just underneath the NFL shield when you're looking at the ball from the outside. But so the data, the ball tag itself blinks 25 times a second. So that's collecting velocity and rotational information. And so, as I'm sure you're all familiar with, and your listeners, when we say a quarterback can spin it, someone like Patrick, we can actually see how many spins is happening, on a particular throw. We can also derive through mathematics. We can take the height of all kicks and passes as well as additional metric that we collect. And of course, for us as fans, what we see on the broadcast, who would have thought 7 or 8 years ago that miles per hour would have been a relevant statistic to even look at in football? It was more like a baseball pitcher's pitch or a hockey puck being hit or a car speed, for instance. But now I think we're all comfortable with, wide receivers are moving at somewhere in the area of 18 to 22 miles an hour as their top speed ranges, and linebackers fit in that 15 or 14 to 17 and a half mile an hour piece. And as we get more comfortable understanding how to use miles per hour as a useful metric in football, the teams are doing in that and becoming much more comfortable and using it in their scouting and player development efforts.
Yeah. So, John, I have a question as far as, you being involved with the NFL. I know we're in the middle of a revolution when it comes to, sports and analytics. Have you experienced any pushback on, just providing your service? Like, have you ever had somebody say, I like my football old fashioned, have you ever had any pushback? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, it's a great question. We certainly have run into that, but I do like to say this. I think the term analytics in football has got a bit of a general bad rap. Really, if we think about analytics as I'll use an analogy or a metaphor of a meal, right? Well, one of the ingredients of analytics is information. And if is more information necessarily a bad thing? Well, I don't think so. So we're tracking and collecting more information to get into the hands of the experts and the coaching staffs and the scouting staffs and the strength and conditioning staff that will help inform them and guide their efforts as they help support the players and build their game plans and design their rosters. And so there has been general pushback when you think about the implication or the application and utilization of analytics. But that's an artistic impression. How the numbers are used by each team is unique. Each coaching staff's unique. Each organization's unique. We're just there to provide them more enriched ingredients, if I may. And so I think over the last couple of years, strength and conditioning coaches were kind of on the front end of comfort and acceptance of this information as being a useful ingredient, if I may, again. And then the scouting staffs as they build their player evaluations, look at free agents, determine if they should determine contracts and other offers they may build a player, and then as they develop a player throughout his career. I think the scouting departments have been and personnel groups have been much more kind of that next group comfortable using tracking data like ours. And now we're just starting to see the coaching staffs being able to use the information and help it guide their design of plays and monitor the workload of their players throughout the game so that they can make sure everybody's working at their optimal performance throughout the game. We're kind of at the early phases of coaching staffs, I think, using this information to inform their game planning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For sure. And one of the first things that came to mind for me was combine training and people, the combine. Do you think that this would be something that would leak down into the combine and looking at those stats at all the individual athletes?
Well, it certainly can. Technically, it can. First off, our system's installed at Lucas Oil Stadium, so in Indianapolis, and so our system's there. We don't currently offer or provide our tracking services in support of the NFL Combine. It's certainly something we're interested in and hope to continue to explore. We have, over the last 3 years, had a relationship with the Senior Bowl in Mobile, where we're tracking the practice activities in the game itself. And as you may be familiar with, and I'm sure your fans, especially Chiefs fans, the practice week, the practice Senior Bowl, the practice week is actually more valuable than the game itself in some cases, because you get those 3 practice activities. And so we do track there and provide the teams a set of reports and analysis on all the players. What we do enjoy looking at, Jasmine, is when we see, I think about a player, I think about Deebo Samuel from the 49ers, for instance. A couple of years ago, he was the fastest player recorded overall the entire practice week and game week at the Senior Bowl. And then we look and see if there's any correlation. The teams will look and see if that also transfers to the 40 time, the 10 and 20 yard split that they're seeing in the activities at the combine. So we have seen teams on their own take the Senior Bowl data that we provide and then associate it to some of the combine work and build out their profiles a bit more. But again, I think, hopefully in the future, someday we can participate more directly with the combine.
Of course.
Yeah, definitely. And this is Q speaking here. Definitely appreciate you joining us today. But you had mentioned earlier just about coaches really using this, designing plays and getting their playbook together. I'm thinking like Noel on the more nefarious side of it, and coaches, maybe wanting to come to you to mine data from other teams. How does that work as far as I would guess like confidentiality or maybe like a non-compete from different teams?
Yeah, thanks, Q. That's a great question. You guys are asking really good questions. That discretion is the first word that comes to mind, and so
definitely,
in our role as a league partner, we're there to serve the NFL for all the game day tracking. And I should say that we have another part of our business that I'm involved with directly, that we engage the teams directly for who might want to use our tracking system at their practice facilities. And so we have almost a third of the league using us to track their practices. And of course, that tracks player participation and workload throughout the course of the season and helps inform the coaching staffs again and the strength and conditioning crew, on players' health. It's also important to monitor return to play after injury, coming back into practice over a period of time. So, we have to be discreet, and I would say, just to accentuate again, I think the using tracking data to help inform game planning and play design, I think we're in the early stages of that. I think there's a handful of things that might be just kind of noodling around with using this information.
Right.
Commonplace yet. You probably guessed the 5 to 8 teams that are on the front end of that. But I think Kansas City is comfortable in that space. So, not that I know directly, but I would just assume, based on the play calling capabilities of Andy and all the talent you have on the field in Kansas City, and how fast and athletic all the players are across the board on both sides of the ball. So it's interesting. We're in a lot of rooms, and we work closely with the teams. But again, you can't stay for long as a partner if you're there, taking information and transferring it from one to another. But it is interesting to see how teams are different in their own way of how they use it. I don't think there's any one right way. I think the wrong way would be to ignore it as a resource.
Yeah, and even looking at the website, I mean, it's just showing over 1 million RFID tags in use, and then 10 years of experience. Kind of walk us through like the development stages. I mean, because you have a website,
Yeah.
and you also talk about how it's real time stats for the deeper fan experience. Are you guys looking at a certain app, or do you have an app available, or is this the tracking? Are fans able to get this in real time, through an app, but then also the back end development of that, the app and the website, and how consumers actually are fed this information?
Sure. So that's a really good question. Let's settle down for the next hour and discuss. Uh, so what's interesting, so Zebra Technologies, the company, right? So we've been around since the late 60s. And the heritage of the company is around UPC codes and industrial printing for major industries like retail, healthcare, operations, logistics, manufacturing environments, and that's what Zebra's played for years. And actually, when the opportunity and part of that, core competency of our capabilities in industrial printing and UPC scanning and coding, things you see in retail environments like scanning your groceries, or at a Home Depot if you're looking for a device and you go to an associate and they can tell you if something's in stock or what aisle it might be on. They're probably using some aspect or all aspects of a Zebra solution in those environments. And when the opportunity came around the 2013 time range, when the NFL opened up an RFI and engaged multiple technology providers around the world to potentially be a tracking partner, what Zebra was able to do was leverage years of industry experience in other industries, if I may, and then bring that capability over and then customize it for a sporting environment. So the elements of, if we can track parts of a car during a manufacturing process in a major manufacturing plant, or we can track a lot of items in a store the size of a Home Depot or a Target or any other large retail store you think of, we can certainly track 22 players on the field at the same time. And so that was kind of the genesis of our heritage, doing it in other industries and bringing that experience and then tailoring it to the NFL. Now, how the system works is the data, the chips that we talked about in the ball and on the players and the receiver boxes, the data is actually available and made available within a couple of seconds. And that information is then pushed to the NFL. The NFL is then in charge of distributing that data back to the teams the day after the contest. So there's no live data that teams are getting on the sidelines or in the booths. Now, Zebra's not involved in the application side of it on the Next Gen Stat site. That's an NFL property and part of NFL.com, and they're in charge of their information. We're just in charge of making sure that everything's collected and distributed to the NFL, and then they make it available. Now, on the team side, when we engage teams directly, when you're practicing, they may be looking at a player who's rehabbing for injury. And they might have a surface device, the performance strength and conditioning coach might have a surface device on the field, and they want to just count the reps or watch the reps on that player. They can see that in a couple of seconds. So if someone's sprinting too much, or they need to accelerate a bit more through some drills, they can actually intervene in near real time because the data is available on the device in a few seconds. And so the live data is made available, and then they are using our application in that scenario. When the team uses us for their practice facilities, we have our own proprietary application that we provide to the clubs. It collects all the information, creates analysis and historical detail and all kinds of information that they're made available. And that's where the live data comes into play. But again, as you guys have seen, if you go to NFL.com or the Next Gen Stat site for the NFL, each year the NFL opens up a little bit more statistics and analysis and charts and graphs for us to really appreciate the tracking information and how much detail it brings to the game.
And it's funny that you say that, because Travis Kelce, I had a conversation with him just about, and that's the Chiefs tight end, and he took me behind the curtain a little bit and said, that the team have tracking devices, and I'm sure it's your technology that tracks his steps to make sure that he's doing what he needs to do, and that he is putting in the work, so to speak. But on the player side, and I know you said you've talked to teams, but have you heard from players? Have you heard any feedback from them? I know Tyreek Hill, and he has his claim to being the fastest wide receiver in the NFL. But and I know there was, I can't remember who it was, but there was another athlete that said that he was faster. Look, because he showed that his 20-mile-an-hour speed on the Zebra technology was shown on the screen. Have you heard from players?
We do hear from the players occasionally, and more so, right? Because the players in the NFL, nowadays everybody's tech savvy, they're information fluent, they love info, and they're so competitive. There is I can't say specifically the team. There is one team that uses in their practice facility that actually puts the speeds on a scoreboard and just uses it as another way to motivate and create increased competition amongst the players on their own staff. So something as fundamental as that, but again, just these are high level competitive athletes, right? Who love that type of stuff. I will say that it was Scott Miller who had mentioned about his speed from the Buccaneers, and I had a couple of number of statistics. Some statistics from this year's playoffs so far. The Chiefs fans may be they have a lot to be excited about, right? But Mecole Hardman in the postseason this year, Mecole Hardman's had the fastest speed registered at 21.52 miles per hour. And that was on his 50-yard rush TD against Buffalo. The cool thing about tracking data, right? When we think about, developing players and training them and making sure they're in optimal performance and prolonging their careers. So we track the real tread on the tire because we're tracking the actual distance. That 50-yard touchdown that we'd see in a box score that we hear in a broadcast, he actually ran 84.1 yards. So think about to make that 50-yard rush. Mecole also had the 7th highest playoff speed. Tyreek has the 3rd highest speed registered in the playoffs. This year, that was on his 71-yard reception against Buffalo. That 71-yard reception where he crossed the field, he went 102.5 yards on that entire play. But you can imagine taking that into the practice vernacular, right? And you think about really tracking how much these guys are on their legs. And so that helps inform the strength and conditioning coaching staffs. Do I start to, if it's a veteran player, do I start to monitor and titrate down a little bit of their activity towards the end of the season? And then on a rookie, for instance, coming in who's played maybe 12 or 13 games during his college career, he's in a 17-week season, potentially postseason. Yeah. How do you really prolong and make sure that young athlete, if he's contributing to the team that year, to make sure he's ready to play throughout that longer schedule, which he hasn't been acclimated to? On the speed piece too. So Scott Miller actually, I said Mecole was first in the playoffs. Tyreek was third. Scott actually on that touchdown pass before half against Green Bay, he was the 6th high. That was the 6th highest speed in the playoffs so far. He got the 20.64 miles per hour. And actually, we saw it was pretty much of a straight downfield run. It was a 39-yard touchdown reception, but he actually went 45.7 yards, so fairly straight down the field. But Scott's fast. I don't know that he's as fast as Tyreek Cole.
And we call that cap, Steve. That's cap. He was capping.
Well, John, we appreciate you having you on. A lot of information for our listeners and our viewers for them to go and check you guys out, especially the Zebra Technologies and Next Gen Stats. We appreciate it, sir.
Well, thanks for having me on, Steve. Nice talking to you all. Have a great week.
And I got one final question for you before you go. This is an easy one. Score prediction for Sunday.
Well, the background on my screen that I can't see, that's on purpose. There might be some disclosure information. Now, I have to be fairly neutral when it comes down to it.
Okay.
If I have a second, I'll just say this real quick. KC extends plays. You guys know that. You guys, a lot of yards after catch for Travis is first in the league. Tyreek's 3rd in the league in total yards after catch. Tyreek's 3rd in the league in yards after catch above expectation. Another next-gen stat. How a player prolongs a play even with tacklers around. He's so invasive. Tampa's defense is 4th best in the league in keeping yards after catch down. Right. So they're 4th best in the league. So if Tampa's defense can not allow your players to extend plays, I think they have a chance. But I'm going to go with the Chiefs.
All right. There it is. All right. That was John Pollard with Zebra Technologies. We appreciate it, John.
All right. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thank you. All right. Stay tuned. Coming up here at about 4 p.m., we'll have a former Tampa Bay Buccaneer that'll be stopping by our table here at Radio Row. Remember to like all of our social media platforms and check us out. 100.1 FM, The W Show. We're out of here.
You're tuned in to The W with Walls and the Crew, where winning isn't everything. It's the only thing. On 100.1 FM and Facebook Live.